Since today is Mother's Day, I wanted to do something special to honor the mothers. I would usually start my Mother's Day message with something humorous, maybe funny things that kids say about their mothers, or a list of "you know you're a mother when." As I was looking through a website that I use a lot of times to find sermon illustrations and things like that I would use, I happened to run across a sermon that was preached by someone else on Mother's Day a few years ago, and I liked it so well that I stole it. I borrowed big chunks of it for today's message. I've never met this pastor. In fact, I think it might actually be a pastor's wife, going by the name, and I don't even know what church they pastor because it doesn't say, but I want to give honor to whom honor is due. So I want to stop and thank Robin Kollerick Schinkel, whoever that is, for his or her contributions to today's message. The message today is going to be much different than most of the messages I preach because we are simply honoring mothers this morning. For those of you that aren't mothers and wonder how this applies to you, let me just remind you that all of us are here because of a mother. If it wasn't for our mothers, we wouldn't even be here to hear this message this morning. So please join me as today we give honor to whom honor is due. In Proverbs 31, King Solomon pays a tribute to, he says, a wife. It's believed he was actually writing about his mother, which most people believe was Bathsheba. And he talks about a wife, but a lot of it applies to a mother. And this is what he says here. A wife of noble character, who can find? She is worth far more than rubies. Her husband has full confidence in her and lacks nothing of value. She brings him good, not harm, all the days of her life. She selects wool and flax and works with eager hands. She is like the merchant ships, bringing her food from afar. She gets up while it is still night. She provides food for her family and portions for her female servants. She considers a field and buys it. Out of her earnings, she plants a vineyard. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her tasks. She sees that her trading is profitable, and her lamp does not go out at night. In her hand, she holds the distaff and grasps the spindle with her fingers. She opens her arms to the poor and extends her hands to the needy. When it snows, she has no fear for her household, for all of them are clothed in scarlet. She makes coverings for her bed. She is clothed in fine linen and purple. Her husband is respected at the city gate, where he takes his seat among the elders of the land. She makes linen garments and sells them, and supplies the merchants with sashes. She is clothed with strength and dignity. She can laugh at the days to come. She speaks with wisdom, and faithful instruction is on her tongue. She watches over the affairs of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. Her children arise and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women do noble things, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceptive and beauty is fleeting, but a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Honor her for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. So he's talking there about a wife, but he also talks about children and children honoring their mother. And that's what we want to do today, is honor our wives, our mothers, those who have invested in us and helped us become what we are. Of course, a lot of there that's in that passage doesn't really apply today because times have changed. There's a lot of those things that really nobody does anymore. And I've actually talked to many women who hate that scripture, and they say, I wish you would never preach from that scripture, because when they read it or they hear it, they feel like they're not living up to the standard that scripture talks about. Well, let me say, if any woman could do all of those things 100% of the time, they would be the perfect woman. But there really is no such thing as a perfect woman, just like there's no such thing as a perfect man or a perfect husband or a perfect child. We all make mistakes. But if we really go down that list and look at the things that it says they do, I think we will find that most women, most of our wives, most of our mothers really fit into more of those categories than those that they don't. So I'd like to quickly read something else this morning. If you don't really relate to that, because a lot of that is old, let me read something else that I ran across as I was searching for illustrations for this morning. Maybe this will relate a little bit more with you. After a long day of work, Mom and Dad were relaxing in front of the TV when Mom said, "I'm tired and it's getting late. I think I'll go to bed." Before heading to the bedroom, she went to the kitchen to make sandwiches for the next day's lunches, rinsed out the popcorn bowls, took meat out of the freezer for supper the following evening, checked the cereal box levels, filled the sugar container, put spoons and bowls on the table, and started the coffee pot for brewing the next morning. She then put some wet clothes in the dryer, put a new load of clothes in a washer, ironed a shirt, and secured a loose button. She picked up the game pieces left on the table and put the telephone book back into the drawer. She watered the plants, emptied a wastebasket, and hung up a towel to dry. Those tasks being completed, she yawned and stretched and headed for the bedroom. On the way to the bedroom, she happened to pass the desk. So she stopped and wrote a note to the teacher, counted out some cash for the field trip, pulled out a textbook that she noticed hiding under the chair. She signed a birthday card for a friend, addressed and stamped the envelope, and wrote a quick note for something that she needed to pick up at the store the next day. She put both the card and the note near her purse. Mom then went to the bathroom where she washed her face, brushed and flossed her teeth, and filed her nails. Dad called out, "I thought you were going to bed." "I'm on my way," she said. She then put some water into the dog's dish, put the cat outside, and made sure the doors were locked. She looked in on each of the kids and turned off their bedroom lamps. She hung up a shirt, threw some dirty socks into the hamper, and had a brief conversation with the oldest child that was still up doing homework. After finally arriving in the bedroom, she set the alarm, laid out clothes for the next day, and straightened up the shoe rack. She remembered 3 more things she needed to do and went out and added them to the list that she had made earlier. Finally, knowing that everything was in order for the next day, she climbed into bed, feeling good about her accomplishments. About that time, Dad turned off the TV and announced to no one in particular, "I'm going to bed." And he did, without another thought. So in light of Proverbs 31 and the story that I just read, that illustrate all of the things that our mothers and wives do, let's now honor our mothers. Mother's Day in the United States is usually credited to Anna Jarvis. Her mother always said that there should be a day to honor women, a celebration of their contributions to the world. Anna Jarvis never forgot her mother's words. And when her mother died in 1905, she decided to fulfill them. She began by organizing a celebration at a Methodist church, I believe her church, in West Virginia. The celebration was held in 1907 on the 2nd anniversary of her mom's death. As part of that celebration, the church was decorated with a lot of pink carnations because pink was Anna's mom's favorite color and carnations were her favorite flower. After that celebration in her own church, Anna began a campaign to establish a national celebration for mothers. And by 1911, although not official yet, there were Mother's Day celebrations in almost every state in the nation. In 1914, President Woodrow Wilson made the official announcement proclaiming Mother's Day as a national holiday that was to be held each year on the 2nd Sunday in May. Ever since that first celebration dedicated to Anna's own mother, flowers have been a big part of Mother's Day. This weekend accounts for 1/4 of all flower purchases throughout the year. In a normal year, approximately $25 billion are spent on Mother's Day gifts, and about 10% of that, approximately $2.5 billion, is spent on flowers or live plants. Even if another gift is given, that gift is often accompanied by flowers. Now, normally on Mother's Day at the church, we would give a small gift to all the women in attendance. But that would be difficult to do while meeting online. Last Mother's Day, we gave out roses to all of the mothers. Today, I want to give the moms a full bouquet of flowers. But we're going to have to do it differently. Today, I'm giving a virtual bouquet. Over the past few weeks, many of us have been giving virtual hugs to people on Sundays through the chat feature on our online venues. Please help me arrange a bouquet of flowers in your minds as I talk about some of the different kinds of flowers that are given on Mother's Day and what they represent. The carnation is considered to be the official flower of Mother's Day, due in part to carnations being used in the early celebrations by Anna Jarvis. So since the carnation is the official flower of Mother's Day, I thought we'd start there. The word carnation comes from either the Greek or the Latin. Both of them offer us meaningful roots. In Greek, the word is koron, which means flower garland. Carnations were considered a royal flower because they were used in garlands which were draped from horses or chariots when members of the royal family rode in parades. Carnations were also arranged in a small circle and worn on the head sometimes in the celebrations in place of a crown. It is from that Greek word koron that we get the word coronation. When we give carnations to our mothers or to our spouses on Mother's Day, we are recognizing them as the royalty, which is a sign of respect. Our mothers are the queen of the house. In Latin, the word carnation is believed to have come from carnus, which means flesh, referring to the flower's light pink color. It matches the light skin-colored hue. It comes from the Latin carnus, or it is from the Latin carnus that we get the word incarnation, which means God made flesh. There is an old legend that teaches that the carnation first appeared on earth because of the Virgin Mary's tears when her son was dying upon the cross. Although it's only legend, that legend teaches that the carnation is a powerful symbol of a mother's undying love for her children. The carnation of what it represents is a perfect flower to celebrate mothers. So we will use it as a foundation for our virtual bouquet. The second most popular flower for Mother's Day is the rose. Roses have a language all their own, telling stories and secrets throughout their varying colors. But roses have long symbolized confidentiality. There's a Latin phrase, sub rosa, which literally means under the rose, something that is told in secret. In Rome, a wild rose was placed on the door to a room where confidential matters were being discussed. It was almost like a note, do not enter, private meeting in session. A rose simplified, this is confidential. What is discussed in this room will stay in this room and never go outside. Many of you probably learned early on that your mother was a perfect confidant. No matter what you were going through in life, you could talk to her and she would keep it to herself. Even when her children mess up, our mothers have the ability to always see the best in them. In a world that often seems harsh, cold, and unforgiving, mothers hold our secrets, our imperfections, our mistakes. And they see the people that we really are on the inside. Jesus' disciples, James and John, were known as the sons of thunder. They were impulsive and prone to action and fighting. But even knowing their impulsive behavior, their mother believed in them and believed that they were worth honor and had no problem petitioning Jesus on their behalf. Mothers are great encouragers and often propel us to greatness. Down through history, many of our nation's greatest leaders have stated their mothers had been responsible for the success in their life. Let me just give you a few of them. George Washington said, "My mother was the most beautiful woman I ever saw. All I am, I owe to my mother. I attribute all my success in life to the moral, intellectual, and physical education that I received from her." Andrew Jackson said of his mother, "There was never a woman like her. She was as gentle as a dove and brave as a lioness. The memory of my mother and her teachings were, after all, the only capital I had to start life with. And on that capital, I have made my way." Abraham Lincoln said, "I remember my mother's prayers, and they have always followed me. They have clung to me all my life." Ronald Reagan said, "From my mother, I learned the value of prayer, how to have dreams and believe that I could make them come true." Roses are the perfect addition to our Mother's Day bouquet. Few of us would be where we are today without the encouragement that our mothers gave us. But not only did our mothers encourage us and keep secrets that we shared with them, they were willing to stand up and defend us when they thought someone was taking advantage of us or treating us unfairly. So for that reason, we need to add a gladiola. Gladiolas symbolize strength and moral integrity. Their name comes from the Latin gladius, which means sword. It's named for the shape of their leaves. Gladiolas remind us of a mother's strength and her fierce desire to protect those that she loves. Mothers are protectors. Sometimes we describe a mother as being the mama bear because they act like a mama bear, protecting their cubs. Another flower that we need in our Mother's Day bouquet is the hydrangea. Hydrangeas have big, beautiful blooms that capture attention. Their name comes from the Greek hydro, which means water, and angos, which means jar or vessel. Literally, the name means water barrel, and it refers to the hydrangea's need for plenty of water. In the Gospel of John, we hear about a woman who was somewhat of a social outcast, who comes to the well to draw water. She meets Jesus at the well and he tells her the good news, the promise of Jesus Christ, of course, which was himself. She recognizes him as God's son. The woman came to the well to draw water, but in the end, she leaves the well forgetting her pitcher of water. The power of that story is that she herself became the bearer of living water. She came to get water, but she left the well, passing water on to other people. She ran to tell others the good news. Men are called to be the priests of the household, but more often than not, it's the women in the home, the moms, the wives, who are the water bearers. It's usually the women that accept Christ first. And then they are the ones that bring the spiritual water home to their husbands and children. My dad was a wonderful Christian man. He was a hard worker and provided for the family. He was always volunteering to help at the church and was willing to help anyone that had a need. Never heard him say a bad word about anyone. I learned a lot from watching my dad and learning from the example that he set. But when it came to actual spiritual instruction in my house, when it came to biblical knowledge, most of that came from my mom. Of course, it works best when both the father and mother work together to lead their children in the ways of God. Fathers should also be water bearers, but today we're celebrating moms. So for those of us that have been blessed with Christian moms, the hydrangea represents the time that our mother spent soaking up the word herself and then passing it on to us. Let's add a sunflower to our bouquet. The sunflower is similar to the hydrangea. A sunflower will literally follow the sun throughout the day. That's why it's called a sunflower, because it will turn to follow the sun. It's constantly facing the warmth and the light. During the night, the sunflower turns itself back. It knows where the sun is going to rise in the morning, and it turns back to be in the right position to soak up those first rays of the morning sun. Some of my earliest memories of my mom were getting up in the morning and finding my mom in the living room doing her quiet time with God. She would get up before anyone else, so she could spend those first moments in the morning soaking up the Son of God. It's impossible to pass on to someone else what you don't have yourself. The best moms are those that follow the sun and then pass on what they have learned to their children. The peony is another impressive flower. Peonies are gorgeous, but sometimes their thin stems are not strong enough to hold them up. But even so, they don't seem to break. They simply bend and bloom a little closer to the ground. Peonies are flexible. I think moms are notorious for being flexible. I remember reading a sign once that said, "Behind every great man is a woman." I think about Noah's wife. What must Noah's wife have thought when he said he was supposed to build an ark? It was a crazy idea. But even though all the neighbors called him crazy to his face, Noah's wife supported her husband patiently during the 150 years that it took to build the ark. Can you imagine the wife standing by while her husband spent 150 years doing something that sounded crazy? She believed in him and allowed him to listen to God. I'm also sure it wasn't easy for Moses' wife when Moses told her he was going back to Egypt to face Pharaoh. And then she spent 40 years in the wilderness with him as he led the always grumbling, never appreciative Israelites. The Israelites weren't even her own people. They were his people. Yet we don't get any indication that she ever tried to talk Moses into giving it all up and returning to Midian with her. She trusted Moses and allowed him to follow God's will. Godly mothers are flexible. They put up with a lot of grief and stress from their husbands and children. Sometimes they look like they're going to break, but instead, they bend and go with the flow. The iris is another beautiful spring flower that we need in our bouquet. The iris became tied to the French monarchy during the Middle Ages. It is now the national flower of France. It's also the image of fleur de lis, a Christian symbol of the Trinity. The iris reminds us of a woman's faith, valor, and wisdom. Although it's usually the men or fathers that are thought of as being the strength in the family, the truth is that without the faith, wisdom, and strength that our wives give us, a lot of us men would be wimps. I wasn't sure exactly what valor was, so I looked that one up. Valor, the dictionary says, is boldness or determination in facing great danger, especially in battle. Heroic courage. At times, when I feel like giving up, my wife Mindy gives me the strength through her prayers or through her words of encouragement. Sometimes when I don't know what to do, she will give me a word of wisdom. Other times she'll just comfort me and say, it's okay, God's got this. God's going to take care of it. God will guide you. Moms do that for their children too. When a child falls, a mom is always there to give a pep talk and to encourage their child to keep moving forward. In Judges chapters 4 and 5, we read the story of Deborah, the only female judge of Israel. The enemy had come against Israel and they lived in fear for 20 years. All the men wanted to fight, but they were all fearful. It wasn't until Deborah rose up that the men decided to take a stand. In verse 7 of chapter 5, it calls Deborah the mother of Israel. Now, she wasn't the mother in the physical sense, but she's called the mother because it was she that encouraged and prodded the Israelites to do what they needed to do. She was the one that, because of her courage, built the courage in the Israelite men to go out. And for that, she's called the mother of Israel. That's what a good mother does. A good mother believes in, encourages, and if necessary, pushes her husband and children to know what she knows they are capable of doing. She won't let us sit back and take it easy and relax and take the easy way out. She says, no, you're better than that. You're going to keep moving forward. You're going to keep pushing through. If you need to, you'll learn it, but God will give you the wisdom. You can do this. They're our best cheerleaders. If you haven't noticed yet, women won't take no for an answer. Her family sometimes gets tired of her nagging, but in reality, her nagging is helping them become what she already knows they're capable of becoming. Another flower, the orchid, is revered for its luxurious beauty. It's a symbol of love and strength. The orchid represents rare beauty, delicate, exotic, and graceful. These are perfect words to describe our mothers. Rare and beautiful in their own ways. Heather's another flower that we want in our Mother's Day bouquet. Its scientific name is Calluna vulgaris from the Greek. Calune, which means to clean or brush, and from the Latin vulgaris, which means common. Heather twigs were once used to make brooms, baskets, ropes, bedding, and thatch for roofs. There's a real commonality to the heather flower. Sometimes being a mother feels so common, so ordinary, just filled with cleaning and housework and menial tasks. But although it may seem ordinary, Heather has a beauty to it. And the last flower we're going to add to our bouquet today is chrysanthemum. In Japan, the unfolding of the chrysanthemum's petals are said to represent pure perfection. We started the message today with Proverbs 31, which is sometimes talked about as being the perfect woman, the perfect wife, the perfect mother. As I already said, no one is perfect. But most of our mothers, if we really think about it, are pretty close to that perfection. At least they're striving for that perfection. And I think that's what God looks at more, is not are you perfect, because none of us are, but are you striving for that? Are you doing your best to be what God designed you to be? And I'd like to close with this little poem. Many of you have probably heard it before. In fact, I think I've used it before. It talks about God creating women. It says, when God created woman, he was working late on the sixth day. An angel came by and asked, why spend so much time on her? The Lord answered, have you seen all the specifications that I have to meet to shape her? She must function in all kinds of situations. She must be able to embrace several kids at the same time, have a hug that can heal anything from a bruised knee to a broken heart. And she must do this with only 2 hands. She cures herself when sick and can work 18 hours a day. Some, I think, work more than that. The angel was impressed. Just 2 hands? Impossible. And this is the standard model? The angel came closer and touched the woman. But you have made her so soft, Lord. She is soft, said the Lord, but I have made her strong. You can't imagine what she can endure and overcome. But can she think? The angel asked. The Lord answered, not only can she think, she can reason and negotiate. The angel then touched her cheeks. Lord, it seems like this creation is leaking. You have put too many burdens on her. She is not leaking, said the Lord. It is a tear. Well, what's it for? Asked the angel. The Lord said, tears are her way of expressing her grief, her doubts, her love, her loneliness, her suffering, and her pride. This made a big impression on the angel. Lord, you are a genius. You thought of everything. Yes, a woman is indeed marvelous, the Lord said. She has strength that amazes a man. She can handle trouble and carry heavy burdens. She holds happiness, love, and opinions. She smiles when she feels like screaming. She sings when she feels like crying, cries when happy, and laughs when afraid. She fights for what she believes in. Her love is unconditional. Her heart is broken when a next of kin or a friend dies, but she finds strength to get on with life. The angel asked, so then she's a perfect being? The Lord replied, no. She has but one drawback. She often forgets what she's worth. So moms, wives, women in our lives, today we stop to honor you. We want to remind you what you are worth. Sometimes when you get discouraged and feel like you're not doing enough, we are amazed that you can even do what you are currently doing. There aren't enough flowers or gifts in the world to truly express what you're worth and to say thanks for all you do. But I hope that you will accept this virtual bouquet of flowers that we've offered today as a token of our appreciation. Happy Mother's Day. We love you.